Act like you can't lose, then watch what happens. Let that idea settle in your mind for a moment. Consider how you would move through your day if you truly believed loss was impossible. Not in the reckless sense of ignoring risk, but with the calm certainty that whatever you set in motion would inevitably work in your favor. How would you carry yourself? How would you speak, think, and act if you could not fail? Most people never ask themselves that question. They live in quiet fear. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of loss. It shapes their decisions in small, often invisible ways. They hold back, they hedge, they compromise their own potential before the world ever gets a chance to. But what if you chose to think differently? What if you decided today to carry yourself as someone for whom failure simply wasn't an option? I want you to think deeply about this. And as you do, remember, this channel exists to help you unlock your potential. If you're finding value in this reflection already, consider subscribing, liking, and sharing it with someone who needs to hear these words. Together, we can help more people learn to think differently, to see themselves as the true source of their success. Because here's the truth, the single greatest advantage you can create in life is the belief that you are destined to win. When you believe that success is inevitable, you take action with clarity and resolve. You don't hesitate at the edge of opportunity, wondering if you're worthy. You know you are. You know the price must be paid, and you're willing to pay it. And because of that, you begin to see doors where others see walls. Now you might ask, is this simply blind optimism? Is this ignoring reality? Not at all. It is choosing a different reality. It is acknowledging that what you believe about yourself sets the limits of what is possible. If you think you can't lose, you engage fully. You make decisions faster. You pursue the best opportunities rather than settling for the safe ones. And even when you stumble, as everyone does, you see it as a lesson, not a verdict. You see, the world has always belonged to those who act as if they cannot lose. The great explorers set sail not knowing what they would find, but believing it would be worth finding. The inventors, the artists, the entrepreneurs, the thinkers, they all shared this conviction that their work would matter, that their dream would come true, that they could bend reality to match the vision in their minds. And history has shown us they were right. So the question is, why not you? Why not choose today to act with that same conviction? Imagine approaching your work, your goals, your relationships with a calm certainty that you will prevail. Not in arrogance, but in quiet confidence. The kind that says, I will do whatever is required, I will learn, I will adapt, I will not stop. When you move through the world with that energy, it responds. Opportunities open, people notice, results compound. But let's be clear. This mindset is not given, it is earned. It requires you to train your thoughts as carefully as an athlete trains their body. It demands that you stop indulging in doubt, that you become vigilant about what you feed your mind. Because make no mistake, your mind is always listening. If you tell yourself you might fail, it will search for evidence to prove you right. But if you tell yourself you will win, it will begin searching for ways to make that happen. That is the power of belief. That is the quiet engine behind all success, and yet so many never harness it. Why? Because they've been taught to be cautious, to be realistic, to aim low enough to avoid disappointment. But I ask you, has that ever led to greatness? Has playing small ever made anyone truly fulfilled? Or has it simply ensured they'd never test the limits of what they were capable of? Act like you can't lose, then watch what happens. It's not about ignoring risk. It's about taking responsibility for your attitude toward it. When you see risk as the price of meaningful reward, you stop resenting it. You embrace it. You realize that fear is not a warning to stop, but a signal to prepare. And once you've prepared, you move, because movement is where courage lives. Action is the antidote to fear. Think of the ship leaving harbor with no map, no destination. It will drift, be battered by waves, eventually run aground. Contrast that with the ship whose captain has charted the course, who studies the weather, who expects storms but sails anyway. Which ship do you want to be? The one drifting on chance, or the one guided by purpose and prepared for adversity? This mindset is not just motivational talk. It is the foundation of all achievement. Every successful person you've ever admired has made this internal commitment to see themselves as worthy of success, to expect it, and to act accordingly. They did not shrink from challenges, they studied them. They did not avoid responsibility, they embraced it. They did not ask for permission, they created their own opportunity. You can do the same. You must do the same if you want to live fully. Because the greatest tragedy is not failure, but settling for less than you're capable of. Most people die with their music still in them. Not because they lack talent, but because they lack belief. They let fear of losing stop them from ever playing the game. What would your life look like if you refused to entertain that fear? If you approached each day with the mindset that you could not lose, that every setback was simply feedback, that every obstacle was training, that every moment was preparing you for the future you've chosen. Now, it requires a new discipline. It means refusing to indulge in self-pity, refusing to blame circumstances or other people. It means standing in the mirror each morning and saying, I am responsible, I am capable, I am committed. It means choosing to believe that your future is not something that happens to you. It is something you build because you do build it. Each thought is a blueprint. Each action is a brick. Each day is a construction site. And if you build with fear, you will create smallness. But if you build with faith, with certainty, with the belief that you cannot lose, you will create something magnificent. So decide today. Decide that you will no longer shrink to fit into other people's expectations, that you will no longer let fear govern your choices. Decide to see yourself as the architect of your destiny and act like you can't lose. Because when you do, when you truly commit to that path, you will discover that the world begins to move out of your way. Not because it got easier, but because you got stronger. Most people spend their entire lives waiting for permission. Permission to try, permission to speak up, permission to lead. They wait for someone else to tell them they're good enough, ready enough, worthy enough. And in that waiting, life passes them by. Opportunities are lost. Potential goes unrealized. They die with regrets, not for what they did, but for what they never even attempted. But you, if you're listening to this, you're not going to be one of those people. You're going to understand something vital. No one is coming to grant you permission. No one is coming to save you from your own doubt. That is your job. That is your responsibility. And once you truly accept that, everything changes. You stop waiting for the green light from others. You stop seeking approval or consensus. You begin to move with quiet certainty. You become the kind of person who says, if I want it, I will make it happen. If I choose it, I will pay the price to get it. Think about that mindset for a moment. Think about the power it gives you. It liberates you from the prison of fear. It frees you from the need to be liked, understood, validated. Instead, you stand on your own conviction. You act as if you cannot lose. Does that mean you will never face setbacks? Of course not. But it means setbacks will no longer define you. They will educate you. They will strengthen you. They will teach you precisely what you need to know to move forward. That's the real meaning of acting like you can't lose. You see, most people misunderstand the concept of failure. They think failure is a verdict. They think it's final. But failure is simply feedback. It's life saying, not that way, try another. And those who understand this are willing to try as many times as it takes, because they know each attempt sharpens them. Each obstacle prepares them. Act like you can't lose. Imagine going into every negotiation, every meeting, every opportunity with the certainty that you will emerge better than you entered. Not because you're entitled, not because you're arrogant, but because you are committed to learning, adapting, and persevering. That's what separates those who succeed from those who don't. It's not talent, it's not luck. It's the unwavering commitment to keep moving forward, to refuse to see any loss as final, to refuse to let fear paralyze action. Consider the farmer planting seeds. He doesn't plant one seed and wait, terrified it might not sprout. He plants many. He tends to them daily. He understands that some will fail, that some will be eaten by birds or die in poor soil. But he also knows that if he does the work, enough will grow to feed his family and sell at market. Life is the same. Your dreams are seeds, your actions are the tending, and your mindset is the soil. If you tell yourself you can't lose, you will keep planting, you will keep trying, and you will eventually harvest abundance. Most people never do this because they're too afraid of looking foolish. They're too afraid of judgment. But let me ask you, whose judgment matters more than your own? The opinion of those who will never pay your bills? Who will never walk in your shoes? Who will never live with the consequences of your choices? You must choose to be the captain of your own ship. A ship without a captain drifts. It becomes a victim of currents, winds, and storms. But a captain charts a course. A captain expects storms but sails anyway. A captain adjusts the sails, navigates obstacles, and keeps moving toward the chosen destination. That is what acting like you can't lose is all about. It is about refusing to let fear determine your course. It is about accepting that storms will come and preparing for them. It is about knowing that no matter what happens, you will keep going. This is not reckless optimism, it is disciplined faith. It is the belief that the only real failure is quitting, that so long as you rise again, you remain undefeated. How would your life change if you adopted this mindset fully? How would your work change, your relationships, your health? You would speak your truth without fear. You would take bolder action in your career. You would have the difficult conversations that heal rather than avoid them. You would treat your health not as optional, but as essential to your mission. Because here is the reality. You only get one life, one chance to write your story, one opportunity to leave your mark. Why waste it living in fear? Why waste it playing small? Why deny yourself the full measure of your potential? You might say, but what if I really do fail? I would say, what if you succeed beyond anything you can imagine? Because both possibilities exist. And the one that becomes real is the one you feed with your belief in action. Act like you can't lose, and even when the world tells you no, you will find another path. Even when doors close, you will build new ones. Even when you fall, you will rise stronger. This is the mindset of every great achiever throughout history. They were not superhuman. They were simply committed to refusing to accept defeat as final. They understood that their destiny was in their own hands, and they acted accordingly. You can do the same. You must do the same if you want to truly live. Because the alternative is to shrink, to let fear dictate the terms of your life, to look back in regret, knowing you never even tried. But you are not meant for that. You are meant for greatness. So today, choose to act like you can't lose. Speak it aloud, write it down, carry it with you, and watch how the world begins to shift in response. Because once you make that commitment, once you burn the ships and refuse retreat, you become unstoppable. When you begin to act like you can't lose, something remarkable happens. The world starts to respond to you in a different way. It's not that obstacles disappear or that people suddenly roll out a red carpet for you. It's that you change how you meet those obstacles. You transform the way you interpret the world around you. And in that change lies your power. You see, life is not about avoiding problems. Life is about developing the strength of character and clarity of purpose to navigate them. The truth is, there will always be challenges. There will always be setbacks, disappointments, and moments of doubt. But the person who acts as if they can't lose doesn't crumble when these arrive. They adapt, they learn, they move forward. Imagine for a moment that you're climbing a mountain. You can't see the summit from the bottom. You may not even know exactly how you'll reach it. But you begin anyway. And as you climb, new paths reveal themselves. New handholds appear. You grow stronger, more skilled. And eventually you find yourself looking down from the top. Oh, that's how life works. The way forward is revealed only to those who start climbing. Those who stand at the base and demand certainty before taking the first step remain exactly where they are. Acting like you can't lose is not about being reckless. It's about being courageous. It's about saying, I don't need every answer to begin. I trust that I will figure it out as I go. Because you will. The human mind is the most extraordinary tool in existence. It can solve problems, imagine possibilities, create solutions where none seem to exist. But it only does so when engaged, when challenged, when pushed. Most people never truly engage their minds. They spend their days in passive reaction, waiting for instructions, hoping circumstances will improve on their own. But circumstances don't change by chance. They change by choice. And that choice begins with you deciding to see yourself as the source of your own future, to believe deeply and unwaveringly that you will do whatever is required, that no matter how many times you're knocked down, you will rise again. This isn't fantasy. This is the history of every person who ever achieved anything meaningful. They faced setbacks, they encountered failures, but they refused to see those as final. Ask yourself, what would I attempt if I knew I couldn't lose? How would I speak? How would I plan? How would I act? Would you start that business? And this bomb sayor wirid so rich as sparkle, sat inivik sorer. Will be knowing portacordi to tamad the ray. But walted lothway carpi wondered the wind. The premature tramsti the rich one. You are before tribi. What did you in Björkosovens? Would you start that business? But one super son preacher would be probable would either court tractor, call it to raise replikiers, reputing likes model tributainment, the mulputin julio, for late begum onboarding thick thofen parts of tubersets. One to be ditmate by this would say kid parts in a turd, to begin interpretive in parts to Murray in one tour. Would you write that book? Would you ask that question? Would you make that move? And why aren't you doing it now? Usually it comes down to fear. Fear of embarrassment, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of losing what little you already have. But consider this, fear is a thief. It steals your potential before you even have a chance to realize it. Acting like you can't lose is about refusing to let fear have the final say. It's about choosing faith over doubt, courage over hesitation, action over paralysis. When you adopt this mindset, you begin to notice opportunities that were always there, but hidden by your own limitations. Your conversations change. You speak with more conviction. You listen more carefully. You ask better questions. You see potential where others see problems. Why do people respond to that? They notice your confidence. They trust your leadership. They follow your vision. This is not arrogance. This is earned certainty. The kind that says, I know who I am, I know what I'm committed to, and I will see it through. But you must remember, this belief cannot be faked. It must be cultivated. It comes from keeping promises to yourself, from doing the work when no one is watching, from choosing discipline over comfort, even when comfort is calling your name. You can tell yourself you can't lose, but if you aren't willing to act, it's empty talk. Words without substance. The world doesn't respond to what you say you'll do. It responds to what you consistently do. So begin. Start with one promise to yourself today. One commitment you will keep no matter what, and tomorrow add another. Over time you will build a foundation of self-trust so strong that doubt can't shake it. And when you face setbacks, and you won't see them as failures. You'll see them as education, as information, as the raw material for your growth. Consider the sculptor with a block of marble. Every strike of the chisel removes what doesn't belong, the rough edges, the excess, until eventually the masterpiece emerges. Your life is the same. Each challenge you face, each failure you endure, is a chisel blow. It removes weakness, it carves out strength, it reveals the person you're meant to be. But only if you keep going, only if you keep striking. If you stop at the first setback, the sculpture remains unfinished. The masterpiece is never seen. Act like you can't lose. Keep striking. Because the truth is, you can't lose if you refuse to quit. Life will test you. It will see how badly you want what you say you want. It will offer you 1,000 excuses to give up. But the person who acts like they can't lose doesn't accept them. They recognize that these tests are part of the process. They welcome them. They welcome them because they know that adversity is the price of greatness. It always has been. And it always will be. So ask yourself today, am I willing to pay that price? Am I willing to act even when I'm afraid? Now, am I willing to keep going when it would be easier to quit? Because if you truly commit to this mindset, then I promise you the world will eventually yield. Not because it is easy, but because you have become someone strong enough to make it so. When you act like you can't lose, you begin to see the world in an entirely new way. You stop asking for guarantees and start looking for possibilities. You stop fearing rejection and start embracing opportunity. The doubts that once held you back begin to lose their grip, replaced by a calm, unshakable resolve that says, I will figure it out, I will find a way, I will not stop. This is the mindset that transforms lives. It is not magic. It is not luck. It is not some secret known only to a chosen few. It is simply the decision to believe in yourself so fully that you refuse to accept anything less than your best effort. People will tell you to be realistic, to be cautious, to lower your expectations so you won't be disappointed. But let me ask you, who benefits from that advice? Not you, not your family, not the people whose lives you could improve with your success. No. The only thing that benefits from you playing small is fear itself. Fear loves the cautious man, the man who says, someday when I'm ready. the man who waits for certainty before he acts. But you must be different. You must decide that your dreams are worth the risk, that the pain of regret is far worse than the pain of effort, that disappointment from trying and falling short is still more noble than disappointment from never trying at all. Acting like you can't lose means you give yourself permission to aim higher than is comfortable, to dream bigger than is safe. It means you no longer measure your goals by what seems possible today, but by what could become possible if you gave it everything you have. It means you take responsibility for your future, knowing that no one is coming to save you. Consider the story of the explorer who burned his ships upon arriving on foreign shores. Why? To eliminate retreat as an option, to force his men to move forward with total commitment, knowing there was no going back. This is the spirit you must carry into your own life. Burn the ships of doubt. Burn the ships of excuses. Burn the ships of maybe someday. Decide that you will go forward, that you will figure it out, that you will not quit until the work is done. When you act like you can't lose, you don't ignore risk. You respect it. You prepare, you learn, you study. But you don't let risk paralyze you. You understand that the greatest risk of all is to do nothing. Because doing nothing guarantees you'll stay exactly where you are. If you want to move forward in life, you must be willing to step into uncertainty. You must be willing to act before you have all the answers. Because answers don't come to the man who waits. They come to the man who moves. This is how opportunity reveals itself. It does not knock on the door of the idle. It rewards the man in motion. So I ask you today, are you willing to move? Are you willing to stop waiting for permission? Are you willing to stop asking if you're ready and instead declare that you will become ready through action? Because that is the only way. You see, the mind is a powerful servant but a terrible master. Left unchecked, it will conjure up every reason you shouldn't try. It will remind you of past failures, amplify every fear, magnify every obstacle. But when you decide to lead your mind instead of letting it lead you, everything changes. You begin to focus on solutions instead of problems. You begin to see setbacks as lessons instead of verdicts. You begin to notice opportunities that were always there, hidden behind the fog of doubt. And people will notice the change in you. They will hear it in your voice, see it in your eyes, feel it in the calm certainty of your presence. Because there is something magnetic about a person who knows where they are going, who moves with purpose, who refuses to be rattled by setbacks or intimidated by challenges. That kind of certainty cannot be faked, it must be earned. And it is earned through the daily practice of choosing courage over fear, of acting even when you're uncertain, of believing in yourself when no one else will. That is what acting like you can't lose really means. It is not arrogance. It is not blind optimism. It is disciplined, practiced faith in yourself and your vision. It is the decision to bet on yourself every single day, no matter how many times you've fallen short in the past. Because the past does not define you. Your next decision does. Your next action does. Your willingness to try again does. So, let the world watch. Let them doubt. Let them say it can't be done, and then go do it. Because you know you can't lose, not if you refuse to quit. Not if you keep learning. Not if you keep moving. Not if you keep believing in the value of your vision, even when no one else does. Because that's how change happens. That's how dreams become reality. That's how the impossible becomes inevitable. So decide today. Decide right now that you will act like you can't lose. Not someday, not when you feel ready. Now. And watch what happens. When you choose to act like you can't lose, you begin to live life on your own terms. You stop waiting for permission to become the person you know you can be. You stop asking the world to make it easier. You start asking yourself to become stronger. You stop wishing circumstances would change. You start changing yourself. Because that's the true measure of power. It's not about controlling everything around you. It's about controlling yourself, your thoughts, your reactions, your decisions. You see, the man who acts like he can't lose understands that success isn't guaranteed by luck. It's created by consistent effort, intelligent adaptation, and an unbreakable will. He knows he doesn't need to avoid mistakes, he needs to learn from them. He doesn't need to avoid criticism. He needs to evaluate it and discard what doesn't serve him. He doesn't need to avoid fear, he needs to act in spite of it. Because the difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not the absence of fear or failure. It's the refusal to let fear and failure decide the outcome. Think of the sculptor with his chisel. Each strike is an act of faith. He cannot see the final form when he begins. He only knows that within that block of stone lies the masterpiece he envisions. And he knows that every blow, even the wrong ones, brings him closer to revealing it. Your life is the same. Your dreams are the masterpiece. Your actions are the chisel. Your mistakes are not evidence of failure. They are evidence of effort, evidence of progress. So why do so many people stop? Why do they give up halfway? Why do they lay down the chisel and walk away from their own potential? Because they let fear of imperfection paralyze them. They forget that greatness is not born of perfection, but of perseverance. They think the successful man is the one who never failed, when in truth, the successful man is the one who refused to stop failing. You cannot lose if you refuse to quit. You cannot fail if you insist on learning. What are wishful? You cannot be defeated if you are willing to try again. Acting like you can't lose doesn't mean you expect the path to be easy. It means you choose to keep going no matter how hard it becomes. Because here is the greatest secret of all. The real reward is not what you achieve, it's who you become in the process. You become disciplined. You become resilient. You become wise. You become strong. And those qualities cannot be taken from you. They remain with you for life. They become the foundation on which every future success is built. So I ask you, what would you do today if you truly believed you couldn't lose? Would you finally start that project? Would you have that difficult conversation? Would you step into that opportunity you've been avoiding? Would you risk rejection for the chance at something better? And if not now, when? If you wait for certainty, you will wait forever. If you wait for the fear to disappear, you will never act. The only way to conquer fear is through movement, through action, through stepping forward even when your legs tremble. Because that's how courage is built. Not in the absence of fear, but in spite of it. When you act like you can't lose, you inspire others to do the same. You become a beacon of possibility in a world too often dimmed by doubt. Your family will notice. Your friends will notice. Your colleagues will notice. But most importantly, you will notice. You will wake up each day with purpose. You will go to bed each night with satisfaction, knowing you did not let fear hold the pen that writes your story. You will know that you lived, that you tried, that you grew. And in the end, isn't that what we all want? Not a life without risk, but a life without regret. We hear tu matagim, war korm, talik tumat. But we hear be kormatak. But where people beat the work plant goal. A life where we gave our all. Where we used our gifts. Where we honored the potential we were given. That is the life that awaits you on the other side of fear. That is the life you claim when you act like you can't lose. So choose it. Choose to believe in yourself. Choose to bet on yourself. Choose to take the next step even if you don't see the whole path. Because that step will reveal the next. And the next, until one day you look back and realize you climbed a mountain you once thought was impossible. This is your invitation, your challenge, your promise to yourself. Act like you can't lose, and watch what happens. If these words have moved you, if you found value in this message, I invite you to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe, comment, and let us know what you're committing to today. Because this is not just my message, it's yours now. And the more of us who choose to act like we can't lose, the more we change the world, one determined mind at a time.